As Noelle said, she's recruited me to be the guide and all-around sidekick. I'm not quite sure what I'm getting into, but we had a good time when she came to China a couple years ago, and I think we'll have a great time. And what I want to do is just talk a little bit about the trip that we're going to take. But China's an exciting place. For those of you who don't know me, I have lived and worked in China since 1984. I went as an English teacher originally. I taught English at one time, and I've done a lot of things. I've taught English, I've worked as a language school director, English program director, training. What I do now is mostly training and orientation for English teachers who come to China. So I've lived and worked in China for almost 28 years now. I do speak Chinese, so I think that's one of the reasons Noelle asked me to come along. Although a month or so ago I wrote to some of my friends who live in Chengdu, you know, it's like, oh, we're going to come to Chengdu. I haven't really traveled in this part of the country much because I live up in the north. I'm a northerner when it comes to China. And so I was mentioning these towns and places, and so my friends are writing back, oh, that sounds like good. Joanne, you do know that people down there don't speak Chinese, don't you? And I'm like, whoops. We may need to pick up a local guide because it's a minority area. They speak minority languages. And also, Sichuan province is noted for its own dialect, which is a little bit different. But I'm hoping since Mandarin Chinese, which is what I speak and which is the official language, is still officially taught. So I'm hoping we'll find people who can at least understand me, or I can understand try to understand what they're saying. So, as Noelle said, we're going to look at what China is today. Look for evidences, things that we see of China in the past when Esther was there, and also look for those changes because, well, we won't be able to miss them. So here's just to put a little bit in context. I don't know about you, I love maps. Anybody here a map fanatic? Okay, I am such a map geek that when I get on an airplane that has the individual television screen and the seat in front of you, you know, with 50 movies and channels and games, I put on the one map, follow the plane, and I'll watch it for 12 hours. That's how much of a map freak I am. So, sorry, but we're going to start our trek, what we've dubbed the Esther Expedition, in Shanghai. And Shanghai is a port city. And that's where she would have arrived. She arrived a couple of times by ship from the United States via Japan. During the Second World War, when the Japanese, a couple of times she had to come, or one of the times she had to come in via Vietnam and sort of around the western side. But primarily Shanghai was the primary entrance into China for Westerners working in China for missionaries. And it was a foreign city dominated by different European nations. They all had their little quarters, so it would have been a sort of a, you know, she's in China but not quite when you're in Shanghai, because she might have been staying with friends in the American zone of the city where she would have had access to American things, but there were Chinese people around her, so it was sort of like one step in. But from Shanghai back then, really the only way to move inland was by river. China had not yet built a rail system. They had no highway system. Certainly in 1927, they weren't flying. They didn't have airlines running around the country like they do today. And so she boarded a ship in Shanghai, and she went up the Yangtze River as far as the city of Chongqing. Now, back then, it probably took her 6 weeks to do that trip. There's a great book called Golden Inches, which I've just given to Noelle, about a missionary woman who made that trip in 1900, and it took her 3 months. Because it's a swiftly moving river going from west to east, and if you're going that way, part of the way you have to be pulled, the boats have to be pulled by men on the side of the banks of the river. So she took the ferry, or these sort of, I don't know what, the river steamers, and they would set up shop, and some of the pictures in the back you'll see that. And so she would have gone up, she went upstream on the Yangtze River to Chongqing. It's possible to go all the way from Shanghai to Chongqing today by ferry. We're not going to do it. Today it's about a 6 or 7 day trip, depending on how fast the river is moving. Our plan right now is to take the train from Shanghai to the city of Yichang. And Yichang is, the name of the city is probably not that famous, but there's something very famous there, which is a very, very large dam. The Three Gorges Dam on the Yangtze River is at Yichang. And so we're gonna take the train there. It's an overnight train. Take us about maybe 15 hours to get there. And we'll board a ferry, just a local ferry. There's several options for us at this point. We can take a fancy 5-star tourist boat, you know, for the Western tour, so we can get on a local ferry. I think we'll take a local ferry. It'll get us a little closer to what she got. And then we will take the train, the ferry from Yichang up the river to Chongqing. It's a very large city in the urban areas, maybe 10 or 12 million people, sort of what China calls a medium-sized city. And from Chongqing, there's a town just a little down here called Yibin. Right down, we'll keep going up the river a little way to a town where she went, and then her journeys took her from there up to Chengdu, which was the provincial capital at the time, and it still is the provincial capital today. So we'll go from Chongqing, we'll make our way to Chengdu, partly up the river and partly by either train, or what's amazing now is that most of these cities and towns that she either had to go by sedan chair or walking, there's now expressways. There's freeways that they've carved through the mountains. So then we'll go up to Chengdu, which is where she worked for a while. She worked at a medical college that is now part of the Sichuan University, so we're hoping to go to the university and talk to people, maybe look at their archives and things. And then down into the remote mountain areas southwest of Chengdu to this couple of cities where she lived and worked. And again, this was very treacherous travel in her day. Now it's either by expressway or there's a train that goes down in here. So that's how we'll be doing it. Just to give a little bit clearer picture here. Oh, Yibin is the so come in from Chongqing to Yibin, up to Chengdu, and then down to these cities. And you can see the map. It's all mountainous area. Sichuan this is a plain area, but most of it is remote mountains. This is Tibet, right on that side of the border. So we're going to be close to Tibet. But this area of Sichuan is a lot of autonomous, it's called an autonomous region, and there are a lot of ethnic minorities. China has 55 ethnic minority groups, and many of them are represented down here. And she worked as far south as Huili, which is down here. And so when Noelle talked about their trek out in 1951, they were here. She was working at the southernmost part of Sichuan province, and they trekked out to the town of Ya'an, which is up here. And like I said, now it's an expressway, but I've heard that on like 100 miles, there's something like 50 different bridges and tunnels. That's how rugged this area is. And then the town where Hannah Cole died is right here. And as Noelle said, we probably won't be able to find the cemetery or the gravesite because within the last 10 years, the government has come in and put a dam just below the city. And so pretty much the whole city is underwater, and they built a new one on the mountains. And so pretty much my guess is what existed of the town when she was there is probably submerged. But we're going to go and check it out anyway. So, one thing I forgot to mention was the length of this trip, 4 weeks. We're going to do this in 4 weeks, and I think I got carried away on something. We're going to we're going to go out through Hong Kong, because when she went out in '51 with the Cole family, and the mother died in Hanyuan, and she helped take care of the infant, they got to Chongqing, and then they flew down to Guangzhou, and then they crossed the border on foot. And so our plan is to end up in Hong Kong in the end of March. And then from Hong Kong, Noelle will fly back here, and I'll go back home to Beijing.